Millions of years ago, long before dogs, wolves, or even humans existed, there roamed small carnivorous creatures called miacids. These animals lived around 60 million years ago. Shortly after the dinosaurs had vanished, they were small, almost like a cross between a weasel and a fox, living in trees and hunting tiny prey, though they looked nothing like dogs. They were the first ancestors of the family that would one day give us foxes, jackals, coyotes, wolves, and finally the domestic dog. At this stage, there was no concept of companionship or loyalty. Life on Earth was only about survival, and miacids were simply predators adapting to forests and climates that were changing after the dinosaurs disappeared. As time passed, these small predators evolved. Around 2 million years ago, the first true wolves appeared. Wolves were much larger and stronger than their ancient ancestors. They developed sharp teeth, powerful jaws, and bodies built for endurance. But their most powerful trait was not their strength, it was their behavior. Unlike solitary hunters, wolves learned to live and hunt in packs. Their ability to cooperate, communicate with howls, and hunt together made them one of the most successful predators of the Ice Age. Humans at this time were in their early stages too. Homo erectus had discovered fire and simple tools, but they were fragile compared to wolves. Wolves and humans did not yet share any friendship. Instead, they were competitors. Both hunted large prey like bison, deer, and mammoths. Sometimes they clashed, sometimes they avoided each other. The relationship between man and wolf was one of fear, caution, and rivalry. Then, about 40,000 years ago, something remarkable began. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, had now spread across Europe and Asia. They were more advanced than their ancestors, using better tools, living in groups, and even creating art on cave walls. Wolves still ruled the wilderness, but among them were some that were weaker, smaller, and less aggressive. These wolves began to approach human camps, drawn by the smell of cooked meat. Instead of attacking, they lingered at a distance, waiting for scraps. Humans, though fearful, noticed that these wolves could actually be useful. They acted as natural alarms, barking or howling when danger came near. They also followed humans during hunts, benefiting from leftovers while helping humans by driving prey closer. This first contact was not planned, but it was the beginning of a partnership. The friendlier wolves stayed closer to humans while the aggressive ones stayed wild. Over generations, the calmer wolves adapted to this new life, becoming less fearful of humans. Humans, in turn, began to see them not as rivals, but as allies. This moment was the true spark that would eventually transform wolves into dogs, the first domesticated animals in human history.
As thousands of years passed after the first contact between wolves and humans, something extraordinary began to unfold. Those wolves that lived closest to humans started changing in ways that no wild wolf could. Around 20,000 years ago, evolution took a new turn. The wolves that lingered near human camps grew smaller in size. Their faces became rounder, their ears softer, and their temperaments gentler. They were no longer the fierce predators of the forest. Instead, they were becoming companions, adapting to a new way of life. This was the transformation into dogs. The key to this change was survival. Wolves that were aggressive did not survive near humans. They were driven away or killed. Only the calmer, friendlier wolves were allowed to stay. Over generations, this natural selection created animals that were genetically different from true wolves. They barked instead of howled, their tails curled, and their coats displayed different colors. Their diets also shifted. Instead of hunting large prey, these early dogs ate scraps of cooked meat, bones, and even grains from human settlements. Slowly, their bodies adjusted to digesting starch, something wolves could not easily do. By around 14,000 years ago, these animals were no longer wolves. They were true dogs. Archaeologists have found graves where humans and dogs were buried together. In one famous burial site in Germany, a dog was carefully laid to rest beside a man and a woman. The dog showed signs of disease, yet it had been cared for until its death, proving that humans had developed not just a practical use for dogs, but a deep emotional bond with them. This was the moment dogs became inseparable from humanity. No longer just scavengers or protectors, they had become companions and partners. Humans used them for hunting, where dogs helped track and chase prey. They guarded camps and homes, warning of strangers or wild animals, and in times of loneliness, they offered comfort. Over the centuries that followed, this relationship only grew stronger. Dogs were bred selectively for different roles. Some were trained for hunting deer and boar. Others were bred to guard villages and protect livestock. Some were even raised for companionship, offering warmth during cold nights. Slowly, hundreds of dog breeds appeared, each shaped by the needs of human society. This was the stage where loyalty was born. What began as survival had turned into trust, and what began as necessity had turned into love. Dogs were no longer wild predators. They were mankind's loyal companions, bound by a friendship so powerful that it has lasted thousands of years and continues to this day. The transformation from wolf to dog is one of the most remarkable chapters in the history of evolution. It was not a sudden change, but a slow process that took thousands of years. Scientists call it domestication syndrome, a series of changes that happen when wild animals begin to live alongside humans. For dogs, these changes were both physical and behavioral. The earliest wolves that dared to live near human camps were different from their wild cousins. They were less aggressive, more tolerant, and willing to take risks for food. Over generations, these qualities became stronger. Their bodies adapted too. Their skulls became smaller, their jaws less powerful, and their teeth less sharp. This made them less threatening to humans. Their ears began to droop, their tails curled, and their coats showed spots and patches of color that wolves never had. These physical changes were a side effect of living with humans, who favored and protected the friendlier wolves. Behaviorally, the change was even more powerful. Wolves are natural hunters, relying on aggression, dominance, and independence. But dogs became cooperative, eager to please, and capable of forming emotional attachments. They learned to read human expressions and respond to gestures. A wolf might see a pointing finger as meaningless, but a dog understood it as direction. This ability made dogs invaluable hunting partners. They could chase prey, track scents, and guard camps with loyalty unmatched by any other animal. For humans, this bond was equally transformative. In a world filled with danger, having an ally like a dog was life-changing. Dogs warned of predators in the night, helped during hunts, and provided warmth in freezing winters. But beyond survival, humans felt something deeper. They saw in dogs a mirror of companionship, trust, and unconditional loyalty. Archaeological evidence shows humans buried dogs not just as tools but as loved ones, decorating their graves with care. This proves that by 14,000 years ago, the wolf was no longer just an animal. It had become man's best friend. The story of how wolves became dogs is not just about evolution of species. It is about the evolution of a relationship. Humans changed dogs, but dogs also changed humans. They taught us loyalty, teamwork, and the meaning of companionship. Together, man and dog built a bond so unique that it shaped the survival and progress of both. Without dogs, early humans might have struggled more in the harsh world. With dogs, they found allies, protectors, and friends. This was the true birth of the dog as we know it today. Once dogs became fully domesticated, their role in human life grew rapidly. No longer just scavengers at the edge of camps, they became essential partners in almost every aspect of survival. Early hunters discovered that with dogs, their chances of success multiplied. A dog's nose could track scents for miles, their speed could chase down prey, and their endurance made them reliable companions on long hunts. In many cases, humans and dogs worked as a perfect team. Humans used intelligence and weapons, while dogs used senses and agility. Together, they brought home food that ensured survival during harsh winters. As human society developed and agriculture began, dogs took on new roles. They guarded fields from wild animals and protected livestock such as sheep and goats. This is where shepherd dogs first appeared, trained to guide and defend flocks. Without them, herding would have been almost impossible in open lands filled with predators. Dogs became the silent protectors of villages, barking at threats long before humans could sense danger. In times of war, dogs also proved their worth. Ancient civilizations such as the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans used dogs in battle. They wore armor, carried supplies, and sometimes attacked enemies directly. They were loyal soldiers, fighting not for glory but for the humans they trusted. In Egypt, dogs were even mummified and buried with honor, showing that their bond with humans was considered sacred. But beyond practical use, the emotional role of dogs became even more profound. For lonely travelers, dogs were companions. For children, they were playmates. For families, they were guardians of both home and heart. The loyalty of dogs created stories, legends, and myths in cultures around the world. In Native American traditions, dogs were seen as spiritual guides. In Norse mythology, they stood as protectors at the gates of the afterlife. Everywhere, dogs were more than animals. They were symbols of loyalty, courage, and love. Over thousands of years, this bond only deepened. Selective breeding by humans created specialized dogs, hunting hounds, guard dogs, sled dogs, and tiny lap dogs for companionship. Each breed reflected the needs and desires of the society that raised it. Yet no matter the role, hunter, protector, worker, or friend, the essence remained the same. Dogs lived for humans, and humans lived with dogs. This was not just survival anymore. This was family. Dogs had become woven into the fabric of human life, not as outsiders, but as members of the tribe. The wolf was gone, and in its place stood the loyal dog, forever tied to the destiny of mankind. Today, dogs are no longer just helpers of survival. They are family. From city apartments to rural farms, from snowy mountains to hot deserts, dogs live alongside humans in every corner of the world. Over time, selective breeding has created more than 400 recognized breeds, each with its own purpose, appearance, and personality. From the tiny Chihuahua that fits in the palm of your hand, to the massive Great Dane that stands taller than many humans. Every breed tells the story of how humans and dogs shaped one another. In modern society, dogs serve countless roles. Some are still working dogs, guiding the blind, rescuing disaster victims, sniffing out explosives, or herding livestock. Others bring comfort as therapy dogs in hospitals, schools, and nursing homes. For millions of families, they are beloved companions, treated not as pets but as children, siblings, and best friends. Scientific research shows that the bond between humans and dogs is biological as well as emotional. When a human looks into a dog's eyes, both release a hormone called oxytocin, the same chemical responsible for love and bonding between a mother and child. This proves that our connection with dogs is not just history or habit, it is written into our biology. But perhaps the most extraordinary thing about dogs is their loyalty. Unlike any other animal, dogs have the power to love unconditionally. They do not care about wealth, status, or appearance. To them, their human is their whole world. They wait at doors, wag their tails at the smallest gesture, and stay beside us through joy and sorrow. From wolves that once howled in the darkness, to companions that now sleep at our feet, dogs have completed a journey unlike any other. Their evolution is not just a story of survival, but of love, trust, and shared destiny. Humanity would not be the same without them, and they would not exist as they do without us. Together, humans and dogs have written one of the greatest friendship stories in the history of life on Earth. And it is a story that continues even today. Every bark, every wag, every moment of loyalty is a reminder of an ancient promise that no matter how much the world changes, dogs and humans will walk this path together, side by side, forever.